According to the Holy Scriptures, Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, is set to bring immortality to the nation of Israel, the elect, via establishing the tabernacle of David, as we talk about the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. He is coming to take down this current world ruled by Esau, Edom, and establish a righteous kingdom, which is synonymous with the throne of David. That's scriptural, which is a government that's going to run this world in righteousness.
After this manner therefore pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down. Eternal life. That's what's promised to the elect. All right, all Israel, but it starts with the elect. And that's how the earth will be governed by immortals, perfect angelic forces who are going to come down and rule on earth. Extraterrestrial bodies will be able to do things that humans do, but in heavenly bodies. Like eating, drinking. Did not Yahweh Shai say he's going to drink wine with us in the kingdom? Well, how do you drink wine with a spiritual body? Well, we're going to have out of this world capabilities in those new bodies.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, we would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. All right, we're GMS Mississippi camp on the brother Yashamath. Got the beloved brother Anah. All right, GMS all in 144. And what we want to get into today, is get into a lesson going into a wicked technocracy versus righteous feudalism. Okay, because it's a system of feudalism. Okay, which any system can be turned into wickedness depending on who's in power. Okay. But when you go into the concept of feudalism, that's going to be the concept of the kingdom. Okay. And we're going to bring that back in righteousness, man. Okay. And what this devil has done, he's turned, feudalism and made it wicked. All right. And then he's turned it into, debt slaves with wages, with his money system, the industrial commercial age. And now the devil wants to take it to another level. All right, with a technocracy, man. Okay, which gives him ultimate control. All right, and on a whole nother level. So what we're going to get into a couple of precepts. And then also we have a video we want to get into some things in the chat. And just expound. On feudalism. All right, and what this devil has turned feudalism into today. All right, and his wickedness, man. Okay. So yeah, let's get that precept in the book of Ecclesiastes, bro. The brother froze. Look like the brother froze. And I get it on my end. He'll hop back on. So let's go here to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10. All right, in verse 5. All right. Uh, so this is the book of Ecclesiastes, verses 10. Chapter 10, verses 5. It said, "There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceeded from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in a low place." All right, because there's a natural system of order in the earth, and the sons of God, all right, were meant to be at the top, okay, of society. Going back to aristocrat. You go into aristocrat, it means uh, the best choice or the best to rule. Okay, in the way that the Lord customized Israelites. Okay, because the scriptures speak about how the Lord, created us to be righteous, man. But the ways of the wicked seducing him. Okay, because the sons of God was created in righteousness because they were supposed to be the best, all right, nation of people to rule. Okay, but what happened was, we failed. We became disobedient. Okay, we didn't take, full accountability of the responsibility that comes with rulership. Okay, so the Lord allowed us to be in a low place. you know and now we're in a society where the most base man is in power. Okay, things are completely upside down from what they're supposed to be. Okay, so when you read it, said, "Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servant upon the ground." And we're the princes that's walking as servants on the ground, all right, in the lower state. And Esau is the servant that's on the horse. Okay, because Esau is not fit for rulership. The Lord propped this man up in rulership as a punishment unto us. Okay, which it was a chastisement to the hopeful elect. All right, and it was meant for the ultimate destruction for 2/3. This last captivity. But when you go into the precepts, when you go into the book of Psalms, when you go into the scriptures, all right, let's get Psalms 119. Just brother, let me know if you get back online. All right, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 119, in verse 71. It says, "It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes." Okay, so it's a good thing that we are going through what we're going through. This affliction is good for us because it's teaching us appreciation for righteousness, man. You know, so this captivity under this base man, Esau Edom, this unfit ruler, is making us It's going to make us cherish rulership once we get it back, and it's making us appreciate righteousness, man. Now we understand, okay, why righteousness, okay, has to be enforced, okay, and it starts with the leadership, which is the role the Lord created us to play, was to be the above people, as the scriptures say. When the scriptures say we are above, where we're supposed to be the highest nation in the earth, we're supposed to have the highest rank as a nation of people. Okay, we're supposed to be kings and lords in the earth. Our sons are supposed to be princes, and our daughters princesses, man, and our women. Okay, that's our rightful order. You see, but we strayed away from righteousness. All right, and the Lord humbled us through these afflictions, man. Okay, and put us under this base man so we can appreciate righteousness, man. And we're gonna cherish rulership in the kingdom to come. Okay, because when you go into what Yahweh Shai was preaching, okay, when you go into the book of Matthew, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 13. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 13, and in verse 10. And it says, And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. So it says the mysteries of a kingdom, because we've been so separated, from what a kingdom is as a people. All right, because we've been the tail, okay, of another man's kingdom for so long that we've been far removed, from the concept of a kingdom, from the concept of sovereignty, from the concept of ownership. We've been so far removed from these things. All right, and as this word goes forth, well, it's awakening us, because one of the main things that we've been awakened to is the concept of a kingdom, the concept of rulership, the concept of sovereignty, man. Okay, because we was blind to these things, man. We thought the highest level of prosperity was being an entertainer or celebrity in another man's kingdom. Okay, but no matter how high people rise in this man's kingdom, we're still slaves. We're still the serfs. Okay, so when you go into, all right, the kingdom in the Greek, okay, you get this word in the Greek,
Strong's G 932. Basileia.
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 Okay, it says royal power, kingship, dominion, rule. Okay, and it says a kingdom, the territory subject to the rule of the king. And we know Yahweh Shai, okay, he's going to have the earth, and he's going to divide, okay, his inheritance with the sons of God, okay, and we're going to have possession over the earth. You see, there's going to be a righteous feudal system, man. Okay, we're going to have a possession of the earth, and these heathens are going to be our property, man. Okay, now for 1,000 years, it's going to be a rigorous rulership, because these heathens are going to be punished, okay, for their participation with Esau in this rebellion against the Most High, okay, and being complicit with the devil in the treatment of his people, because the devil took it too far. We was given to his hand for a punishment, but he took it too far, and these nations have been complicit, okay, with Esau, man. Okay, so that first 1,000 years within our kingdom is going to be a rigorous rulership, okay, for these heathens, man. And Esau, he's going to be done away with after 1,000 years, okay, and after 1,000 years, these heathens, they're going to enjoy the benefits of a righteous feudal system, man. You know, and we're going to go into a little more, but let's go from there. Let's see, because I want to get the definition. I want to get that definition of this word. You you good, bro?
I'm good. Internet had rebooted.
Okay, come. Okay, come. Yeah, so I'm gonna just get this, and then we segue to the video, bro. So when you go into feudalism, say feudalism was a social, economic, and political system used mainly in medieval Europe, and that's when Jake was in power. Then the segue into Esau to the Renaissance period. Okay, from about the ninth, because you go into feudalism, it has concepts, rooted in the Bible, you know, and it says feudalism was a social, economic, and political system used mainly in medieval Europe from about the 9th to 15th centuries. It organized society around land ownership and mutual obligations. It says the core idea: land was the main source of wealth and power. Kings granted lands to nobles, and in return, those nobles promised loyalty and military service. It says basic structure: the feudal society is often described like a pyramid. King owned all the land in theory, gave large, all right, sections of land called fiefs to nobles, okay, governed the land they received. It says promise military service and loyalty to the king, let smaller nobles or knights use part of their land. It says you had the knights, which are vassals, warriors who protected the land, served lords, and servants. in exchange for land and payment. And it says peasants or serfs worked the land to produce food. In return, they received protection and a place to live. Serfs were tied to the land and couldn't easily live. All right, and these heathens are going to be, all right, the serfs, okay, in our kingdom. All right, and then you're going to have, a rank and order, beginning with your house shot, okay, and then you're going to have 144,000 of first fruits. You have the rest of the elect, men, women, and children. It's going to be, our whole nation is going to be a ruling class, okay? Every Israelite born is going to be a part of the ruling class, okay? It's going to be a righteous feudal system, and we're going to have ownership, okay, of everything, okay? And these heathens, they're going to get, their portions from us, okay? Their labor is going to belong to us. Now, I say that first 1,000 years is going to be rigorous, okay? Because it's a punishment and a chastisement to these heathens, okay? And after that 1,000 years, Esau is going to be done away with, you see? But after that 1,000 years, these heathens, they're going to be able to enjoy abundance. They'll never be a part of their ruling class, okay? With Israel, they'll never be part of that new covenant. They'll never have the new bodies, okay? So they'll never be able to be on the same rank, all right? The lowest Israelite, okay, is going to be far above the highest ranking heathen in the kingdom, man. So it's going to be a big difference, you see, but it's going to be a righteous feudal system, man, but in the feudal system, the people at the bottom, all right, after 1,000 years, these heathens, they're going to be able to enjoy abundance, okay? It's not going to be a system that keeps them, barely hanging on and barely surviving like this devil has it, man. He runs the world where people are barely hanging on and barely surviving, okay? The heathen are going to be able to have abundance under us, man. Okay, they're gonna get to enjoy, all right, the earth, the paradise of the earth, man. But their labor is gonna be forever, all right, our possession, man. They're gonna be forever our inheritance and our possession, man. Okay, so let's get to the video and show how this wicked nigga, how he does, feudalism. And then even in the medieval times, Jake became greedy and wealthy. Jake that was in power. Jake wasn't righteous. They was better than Esau, but Jake wasn't righteous. Jake, you had, wicked niggas in power, then. But yeah, go ahead and play that video, bro.
Come on, I got you.
You probably think feudalism ended with the Middle Ages, that serfs were freed, land was redistributed, and everyone became equal under capitalism. But here's what they don't teach you. The system never died. It just changed costumes. Today, you don't owe labor to a lord for land you'll never own. You pay rent to a landlord, work for a corporation that owns your output, and subscribe to platforms that control your access. The names changed. The extraction didn't. And if you think you're free because you're not chained to the soil, think again. Because the modern economy runs on the same logic that kept peasants poor for 1,000 years. You don't own, you rent. Welcome to the financial system. Control the money, control the history. And remember, simple is never easy. Let's start with what feudalism actually was. In medieval Europe, society was a pyramid. At the top sat the king and the church. Below them, the nobility, lords who controlled vast estates. And at the bottom, the peasants, who made up 90% of the population but owned almost nothing. The system worked through a brutal trade, protection for labor. Peasants worked the land owned by lords. In exchange, they received safety, shelter, and just enough harvest to survive. But they could never leave. They were tied to the land by law and debt. They paid taxes in grain, labor, and children. Their sons inherited not freedom, but obligation. This wasn't corruption, it was the system. Power came from ownership, and ownership meant land. Whoever controlled the land controlled the food supply. Whoever controlled the food supply controlled the people. It was a closed loop. Work the land, give your surplus, stay poor. Lords didn't need to force compliance through violence alone. Hunger did most of the work. The peasant had two choices: obey or starve. And starvation was not a metaphor. Famines were regular. One bad harvest could wipe out entire villages. The system required scarcity, because without scarcity, there was no leverage. Without leverage, peasants might ask for more, or worse, leave. That's why mobility was restricted. You couldn't just walk to the next village and start fresh. You were property, tied to the estate. And if a lord was cruel, abusive, or extractive beyond reason, too bad. There was no competition, no appeals process. You were born into it, and you died in it. But feudalism wasn't just about land. It was about layers of extraction. The king taxed the lords taxed the peasants, the church taxed everyone. And at each layer, someone skimmed value without producing anything. Lords didn't farm, knights didn't build, bishops didn't plant, they owned. And ownership, not labor, was the source of wealth. The people who actually created value, the ones who planted, harvested, built, and crafted, received the least. This wasn't an accident of history, it was the design. Every empire, every feudal state, every monarchy learned the same lesson. If you want to stay rich, make sure the people who make you rich can never accumulate enough to challenge you. And that system lasted for centuries. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Suddenly, wealth wasn't just about land anymore. It was about factories, machines, capital. Peasants left the countryside and flooded into cities, hoping for freedom and wages, and they got wages, barely enough to survive. What they didn't get was ownership. The factories they worked in, owned by capitalists. The machines they operated, owned by capitalists. The housing they rented near the factories, owned by capitalists. The system didn't end, it industrialized. Instead of a lord owning the land you farmed, a factory owner owned the building where you worked. Instead of giving grain as tribute, you gave labor for wages, just enough to keep you coming back. The extraction mechanism stayed the same, only the aesthetic changed. You weren't tied to land anymore, you were tied to wages. And if you think that's freedom, try quitting without savings. Try leaving without another job. The difference between feudalism and early capitalism wasn't freedom, it was mobility of servitude. You could choose which factory to serve, but you still served. And just like medieval times, the people who owned the means of production accumulated wealth. The people who didn't. Over time, those early industrialists became dynasties: Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt. They built empires not by working harder, but by owning more. They owned the oil, the steel, the railroads. And just like feudal lords, they extracted value from thousands of workers while contributing almost none of their own labor. Ownership, once again, became the choke point of power. But at least in the industrial age, there was some hope of mobility. If you were smart, ruthless, or lucky, you could start a business. You could own property. The American dream was real, for some. But even then, the game was rigged, because wealth compounds. The more you own, the easier it is to own more. And the more you own, the harder it is for anyone else to catch up. By the mid-20th century, the top 1% controlled more wealth than the bottom 90%. The distribution hadn't changed since medieval times, only the speed had. Then came the digital revolution, and that's when feudalism went stealth. Look around. Who owns the platforms you use every day? Not you. Amazon owns the marketplace where you shop, Google owns the search results you trust, Facebook owns the social graph that connects you to others, Apple owns the App Store where you download tools, Microsoft owns the software you use to work. These companies don't produce what you buy. They own the space where buying happens. They're not merchants, they're landlords. They own digital real estate, and you pay rent every time you click. When a small business sells on Amazon, Amazon takes 15 to 40% of every sale. Not because Amazon made the product, not because Amazon shipped it, because Amazon owns the land, the platform where transactions happen. It's a toll, a tax, a feudal due. The same logic applies to Uber. Drivers provide the car, the gas, the labor. Uber owns nothing but the app. And yet, Uber takes 25 to 30% of every ride. Why? Because it owns the platform. The platform is the new land. And just like medieval lords, platform owners don't need to produce value. They just need to own the space where value is created. Then they skim. And if you don't like it, too bad, because these platforms have monopolies. Try running a business without Google search visibility. Try selling globally without Amazon. Try reaching customers without Meta's ad network. You can't. You're dependent. And dependency is control. This is feudalism 2.0. But it's not just platforms. Look at housing. Hedge funds and private equity firms now own hundreds of thousands of homes across America. Regular people don't rent from landlords anymore. They rent from algorithms. BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and others buy entire neighborhoods, convert them into rentals, and extract wealth month after month. You'll never own that house. They will. And every rent check you send is a transfer of wealth upward, just like a feudal tax. This isn't speculation, it's data. Since 2008, the home ownership rate for young people has collapsed. Meanwhile, institutional investors doubled their holdings. They're not buying homes to live in, they're buying them to own. Because ownership is profit, and profit doesn't require effort, it requires leverage. The same pattern repeats in credit. You don't own your purchasing power, you borrow it. Credit cards, student loans, car loans, mortgages, these are the modern version of debt bondage. You can't afford college, so you borrow. You can't afford a car, so you borrow. You can't afford a house, so you borrow. And once you borrow, you're locked into payments for decades. Who profits? Banks, lenders, the ones who own the money supply. Interest payments are the new tithes, small, invisible, relentless. Every month, wealth flows from your paycheck to their balance sheets. And you're told this is normal, that debt is just part of life. But medieval peasants were told the same thing. They were told the Lord deserved his share because he owned the land. Today, we're told the bank deserves its interest because it took the risk. But the risk was never equal. Because the bank creates money when it lends. You create nothing when you borrow, except obligation. So here's the truth they don't say out loud. Feudalism didn't die, it evolved. The castles became corporate headquarters. The lords became CEOs and billionaires. The land became platforms, patents, and financial instruments. And you're still the peasant. Not because you're worthless, but because the system needs you that way. It needs your labor, your data, your rent checks, your debt payments. It needs you producing value you'll never fully own. Because if you owned it, you wouldn't need them. And that's the one thing the system can't allow. The uncomfortable truth is this. Every economic system in history has been about one thing: who controls the value others create. And in every system, it's been the same answer: whoever owns the means of production. In medieval times, that was land. In industrial times, that was factories. And today, it's platforms, data, and financial assets. The tools changed, the logic didn't. The only difference now is that the chains are invisible. You're not tied to land by law. You're tied to rent, debt, and wages. You can leave one job, but only for another job. You can stop using one platform, but only to use another. The freedom to choose your master is not the same as freedom. And that's why Feudalism 2.0 is so effective. It doesn't feel like oppression. It feels like choice. You chose to take the loan. You chose to rent. You chose to work for someone else. But when all the options lead to the same place, extraction, it's not a choice. It's a system. And the system is working exactly as designed, because the people at the top don't want revolution. They don't want collapse. They just want you to keep working, keep renting, keep borrowing. And as long as you do, the wealth flows upward, silently, legally, inevitably. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And the rhyme of feudalism is power through ownership. The names change, the mechanisms evolve, but the result is always the same. A small group owns everything, Everyone else works for access. That's not dystopia, that's now. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. It's financial system and history leaves clues. I show you where the money leads.
Yeah, Con. So you see now, these devils, they made feudalism 2.0, their wicked version of feudalism. Now the next step is to merge people, all right, with this technology, man. Okay, that's the next step because they want to keep this system. They want to take this to a whole. They want to take this system of control and dependency to a whole nother level now with technocracy, man. Okay, so now they're building a digital infrastructure because people are already on these digital platforms. Okay, to where people are paying for permission. You trade your labor just to have permission. You know, and he wants to take that to a whole nother level. You see, so now what the devil's getting ready to do is try to merge people with this technology, okay, so they can be forever dependent on him, so he can own their labor forever. And he even has his people in the mix, you know. He even has his own people in the mix, man, which is wicked. He concentrates all the wealth to just an elite few of his own people, you know. But in the kingdom, all right, it's gonna be a righteous feudal system, all right, because Esau, matter of fact, uh let's get Genesis 27 and 28, because we're gonna go to the blessing of Jacob and Esau, which both Jacob and Esau are both blessed with world dominion. Okay, and we're seeing what Esau was doing with his world dominion. Okay, because even this man, he destroys the food. Okay, he destroys, all right, the water. He pollutes. It's a constant war, because part of the agreement with, a feudal in the feudal system is that the lords will provide safety and protection, okay, and free movement of commerce, okay, and the serf will provide labor. Well, he's not holding up his deal because he keeps people at constant war, okay. Violence is normal in this man's system, okay, just domestic violence, not even just blown out war, domestic violence, man. Okay, he poisons the food, he's poisoning this, he doing psyops on your ass. So this man is just completely wicked in this feudal system, man. Okay, but you got it, bro.
You said Genesis 27 and 28, or you'll start at 30.
Yeah, come. What 28 say?
It says Genesis 27 and 28. It says, therefore the Most High gave thee of the dew of heaven.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
fat.
Let's start at 27. Matter of fact.
Come, this is Genesis chapter 27 and verse 27. It says, and he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his remnant and blessed him, and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord Yahweh had blessed.
Yeah.
Verse
So this is Jacob. This is Jacob coming to Isaac, which Rebecca, had made him hairy and smell like Esau. He put hair on his arms and made him smell like Esau because Isaac couldn't see. Okay, so this is Rebecca and Jacob, supplanting the blessing from Esau, which it was Jacob's anyway. And then Esau sold his birthright. But you go ahead, bro.
verse 28, it says, therefore the most high gave thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine.
Yeah, so that's the possession of the earth and the resources. Okay, which will make Jacob a lord of the earth, a landlord of the earth. A king. You see, a king is landlord of whatever territory that he owns. He's the highest lord. You know. So Jacob was blessed with the fatness of the earth, all right, and the resources in it. You see, so the earth and everything in it, including the people. Go ahead.
Verse 29, it says, let let the people serve thee, and the nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that cursed thee, and blessed be he that blessed thee.
Yeah, be Lord over thy brethren. Let people bow down to thee, letting you know that people came with the blessing. All right, and it links up real quick. Get that in Psalms chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, and then we'll go back to Genesis.
This book of
And this is the
Psalms,
Heavenly Father speaking to Yahweh. You got it, bro.
this is book of Psalms chapter 2, verse 7 and 8. It says, I will declare the decree. The Lord Yahweh has said unto me, Thou art my son, this is the day I have begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession.
Yeah, so this blessing was given to Yahweh Shai. This was before the earth was made. Okay. And then you see Jacob getting this blessing, and Yahweh Shai will come through who? Through Jacob, through Israel. Yahweh Shai is the Israelite. So this blessing was always meant, all right, for Jacob. And see, we got this blessing eternally. Esau has it temporarily. Okay. And he's showing why he's not fit, okay, to be in rulership, man. You know? So right before we will come into our blessing, all right, with an eternal kingdom where we will have to be servants in Esau's blessing, so the Lord can make us cherish righteousness, man, so we can appreciate righteousness and we can appreciate rulership, man. Okay, and we can really understand the severity of rulership. Okay, but you got it, bro.
Back in Genesis.
We go back to Genesis, and then let's get that word Lord in Genesis 27 and 29. See what they say.
I'll grab that quick. This is that word Lord here in Genesis 27:29.
Strong's H 1376. Gevir. Gevir.
All right, it says
So
Lord.
the Hebrew word is
What?
the Hebrew word is Gabar, Gabayar in the Hebrew. Yeah, Gabayar.
Okay, it's Gabayar. It says Lord, ruler, a master, Lord. Right. In the Hebrew lexicon, it says Lord, so called for the idea of power. See, that's it, bro.
Okay, yeah. So it just goes into a ruler. Yeah, it just goes into a ruler. A master. So it was always meant for Jacob to be a ruler and a master in the earth. Okay. Now Esau will get blessed with the same thing. Okay, but his was temporary. Okay. So go ahead into verse 30.
This is Genesis 27:30. It says, and it came to pass as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. Verse 31. Verse 31. And he also had made savory meat and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise and eat his son's vision, and bless eat his son's vision, that thou soul may bless me. And Isaac said,
So Esau comes in after Jacob, gets the blessing, and Esau thinking that he's going to come get the blessing. So he brings in, venison, which Isaac sent him on the hunt to go get venison. Okay, so by the time he gets back, Jacob has already supplanted the blessing, which was for Jacob anyway. Okay, but Esau is going to come, all right, and entreat the blessing, entreat that blessing from Isaac. Go ahead.
He gonna try to entreat of the blessing that he had already sold. And that just show you how evil and how wicked this nigga is, how much he's a liar. Verse 30. Flocky. Verse 31, it says, and he also had made savory meat. I read that one already. Flocky. Verse 32, it says, and Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? And he said, it is thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who? Where is he that have taken vision and brought it and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, yet, and he shall be blessed.
Yeah, so Isaac doubled down and said, yeah, he shall be blessed. Letting you know that it was always meant for Jacob. Okay, so Isaac doubled down on the blessing he gave Jacob and said, yeah, he shall be blessed. He didn't panic and try to undo the blessing. He didn't panic and try to say, well, go find him that I bless so I can No, he said, yeah, and he shall be blessed. Will let you know that it was always meant, okay, for Jacob. But you got it, bro.
Verse 34. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, thy brother came with subtlety and had taken away thy blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Verse
Go ahead.
verse 36. And he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. And he said, and he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me?
Yeah, so he has he reserved a blessing for him. Now we're gonna go into what Esau was blessed with. Go ahead.
Verse 37. And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy Lord, and all his brethren I have given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son?
Yeah,
Verse
so
30.
he's pretty much telling Esau. He's telling Esau, I gave Jacob everything. I have made him thy Lord. I gave him all the resources. He has everything, corn and wine. So he has everything. Even you, he got you. So Isaac is like, nigga, what? It really ain't nothing left. You know, but you got it, bro.
Verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept.
Yep, go ahead.
Verse 39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of the heaven from above. And by the sword thou shalt live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
Yeah, so this devil, because that's the point. So this devil, he received the fatness of the earth, okay, and the dew of heaven from above. So he received a blessing of a world rulership, but it was temporary. So Isaac, he etched out a little time period for this nigga to rule temporarily before Jacob would come into his blessing, man. And the Esau was showing what he would do. Esau was showing, all right, what his kingdom would look like. Matter of fact, the scriptures say, matter of fact, let's get that in uh Ecclesiastes 10 and 16. And then we're gonna link that up with Matthew 24 and 21. But you got it, bro. So this like the Lord gave Esau a trial run, the rulership of the earth, man. And look what this nigga has run into. He made everybody rebel against the Lord. This nigga has the biggest rebellion ever against the Lord within his rulership, man. Okay, and the people, the way that this man is ruling the earth, man, nobody will survive. But you got it, bro. You get that in Ecclesiastes 10 and he probably knocked off again. Okay, let's go back to it. So let's go here real quick to the book of Ecclesiastes 10. Okay, this is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10. All right, in verse 16. They put you back on, bro. You good?
Come, I'm back on, bro.
I heard. Okay, come. You can take mine now. You put yours on. Put the
You said 10.
Ecclesiastes 10 and 16.
I got it
Yeah,
pulled up.
Ecclesiastes 10 and 16.
This book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, and verse 16. It says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning."
Yeah, so woe to thee, O land. So that's the earth, especially here in America, man. When destruction to thee, O land, because you have an unfit nigga in power, man. Esau Edom, he's unfit. Okay? The way that the Lord created Esau, he's not meant to be in rulership forever. Okay, this is why the blessing was never for Esau, and the Lord is showing that, man. Okay, because like I say, the feudal system is not a wicked system, but the way that this man does it, and the way this man has threw his technocracy in the mix. Okay, first it went to the industrial. Okay, it went to industrial commercial. Now it's going to what digital. Okay, which is leading to a technocracy, man. So the system just get worse and worse and more corrupt and more oppressive under this nigga, man, because he's not fit. All right, so woe to thee, O land. Read it again, bro.
I got you, bro. This is Ecclesiastes 10 and 16. It says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning."
Yeah, and now princes eat in the morning, which means that their priorities is themselves. Okay, because as a nobles, you're a servant to the people. Okay, your rulership should do a service to the people. It should benefit the earth. It should benefit the people. Okay, that's in your realm. Okay, they should be the first priority. Okay, but the way that this devil runs it, he's his first priority in his kingdom. Okay, and that's why you have such an unevenly distributed, all right, wealth. That's why you have such uneven wealth distribution, man. Okay, where the 1% own over 90% of the wealth of the world, man. Okay, that's completely wicked and off balance, man. Okay, the earth is full of resources and abundance where everybody can be good to where they don't have to stress, worry about starvation, worry about working long hours. Okay, just to survive, man. Okay, but when you go here, because it woe to thee, O land, and even Yahweh Shah, he backs it up. Okay, when you go to here, let's get Matthew. Um, let's get the book of Matthew, chapter 24. Okay, and verse and 22, it says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." Okay, so if Yahweh Shai did come back and cut this man off from ruling, no flesh will make it. That's how poor of a ruler this man is. Okay, this is a wicked rulership. He doesn't care about life. Okay, this man doesn't. This man has no value when it comes to life. He only values him getting more control, himself becoming more powerful, man. Okay, he's trying to be the most. He's trying to do too much. Trying to be the most high, nigga. You're doing too much. Okay, you ain't even master being a regular person. This nigga trying to be the most high. You can't even function or as a human in the earth, and you trying to be the most high, man. Okay, and under this man's rulership, if Yahweh Shai did come back and intervene, all right, no flesh will make it, man. Okay, but now when you go here, and this is why Yahweh Shai, he told us not to rule like that, man. Okay, let me see. I think that's in the book of Luke. You see Yahweh Shai when he was talking to his disciples, all right, who will become apostles. all right, who's going to be, the top men, okay, in the kingdom, okay. I think there's another one in Luke. Let me see. Let me get the one in Luke. So Yahushua, he was talking to his disciples. Okay, here you go. Luke 22 and 24. All right. It's the book of Luke, chapter 22, verse 24, saying, there was also strife among them, which of them should be accounted the greatest. And he said unto them, the king of the Gentiles exercised lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. All right. So how the heathen will rule, okay, is that they will use their position and their status and rank to just enrich themselves, not to forward the people that they was ruling over, man. Your a ruler is supposed to forward the people that he's ruling over. He's supposed to forward life. When you go back to the garden, Adam was given that breath. It was to protect life. Okay, which this is Adam, which if you can receive it, Yahweh Shah speaking. Because Yahweh Shah understood all his mistakes as Adam and Solomon. Okay, he understood all his mistakes. So this is why now he's coming, to the disciples and letting them know, like, look, that ain't the style we want to rule in. This is in what? Pax Romana. This is the peak of the Roman Empire where he's telling his disciples, like, look, don't rule like them. They use their position and their status to enrich themselves. Okay? But then they put on as if they're for the benefit of the people. Okay? They call themselves benefactors. Or Esau called these billionaires, they call themselves philanthropists now. They make all these billions of dollars by, extorting the labor from the masses. Okay, taking shortcuts in production. Okay, but then they'll build a library in Harvard and say they are benefactor to society. Give out a scholarship or two every now and then, and now they are benefactor to society, man, when they've done nothing but take. Okay, a ruler is not, it's not supposed to be a one-way thing where people just extrapolate all their labor, their time, and their energy, okay, towards your benefit, man. Okay, as a ruler, they're supposed to be able to thrive in the environment. It's supposed to be an environment where they thrive, man. The air should be clean, the food should be real and full of nutrition, man. The simple Esau don't even do the simple things, man. Okay, it shouldn't be a society of violence where everybody got to have a gun 24/7. There's random shootouts, and see, that's not so. Here it is, as a ruler, you're supposed to keep that in check. That's your, see, as a ruler, you have responsibility, man. Okay, which we're gonna get into that in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, and it says, and he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But ye shall not be so. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief as he that doth serve. Okay? So the ones with the greatest rank, okay, with the greatest authority, the chief amongst the people, all right, their office is to serve the masses, man. Okay? And by default, you're putting them in a position to where they're going to win, and they're going to want to willingly, okay, serve you. Okay. But Esau, this devil here, man, he has a system that's so corrupt and so perverted and so destructive to the very people, that he's ruling over, man, even though his own kind. Because really every Edomite supposed to be way well off than what they are, man. But this devil has hoarded the resources to himself, man. Amalek has hijacked the blessing. It's a beautiful thing to see them fall out with each other at the end of this rulership. Okay. Verse 27 says, for whether is greater, he that sitteth at meat or he that serveth, is not he that sitteth at meat, but I am among you as he that serveth. So even though Yahweh Shai was, greater than them, he was above them. Okay. He was among them as a servant. Him washing the feet, that was him showing, that he was a servant amongst them. He came as a servant. You see, he had the spirit of a servant because in order to be a great leader, you first have to be a great servant. You have to understand the concept of servitude. Okay, because no matter how of a rank you get, you never stop serving. You always serving. Okay, so when you go from there, going back to Ecclesiastes, are you back on?
Come on, bro.
Come on, I didn't know you. But you can go back to you can get Ecclesiastes 10 and 17.
And I already got it pulled up. This is Ecclesiastes 10 and 17. It says, "Blessed art thou, O land, when the king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat
Yep.
in due season for strength and not for drunkenness."
Yo, blessed is thee, your land. Because the earth is going to benefit off our rulership. The earth itself, the animals, the flowers, the vegetation, the air, the water, everything's going to benefit off wise rulers, the earth itself. Okay, then the people, they're going to benefit, man. Hey, people are not like Esau has it to where people have what you call cognitive diminishment, man. People's ability to think is diminishing, man. This man just destroys people. Okay? And the brother got that brother, GMS Good Soldier 144, he got a good precept. Uh let's read that, bro. It's a rock. It's a rock chapter 14, verses 8 through 10 in the GNT. But you can read that, bro. Yeah, Sirach 14, verses 8 through 10 in the GNT. What you got,
Come,
bro?
this is GMS good soldier 1443. Sirach 14 verses 8 through 10 in the GNT. It says, "A selfish person is evil. He turns his back on people's needs and is never satisfied with what he has. Greed will shrivel up a person's soul. Some people are too stingy to put bread on their own table."
Yep. And this is the devil, man. This is the devil, Esau. He's a selfish person and he turns his back on the needs of the people, man. Because ruling comes with responsibility, man. Not just for the sake of clout, not for the sake of enriching yourself, because you're in this privileged position, man. But before any of that is a responsibility. That's why it says, read that in verse 17 again. Ecclesiastes 10 and 17.
Ecclesiastes 10 and 17, it says, "Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness."
Yeah, because we the sons of God. Okay. So the Lord created us to be superior in everything, you know, superior in every way, but it's for the sake of ruling in righteousness, man. Not to enrich ourselves. We're not a superior people to enrich ourselves. Okay, we're a superior people to be the standard of righteousness in the earth. Okay. And it says, who eat in the evening, not for drunkenness, but for strength. Okay, which means being moderate, being disciplined. Okay, because the people with the highest rank have to have the highest level of discipline because they have access to so much. So they have to have the highest level of discipline. Okay, well, you got this nigga Esau, a man with no discipline that has all this access, and you see the conditions of the earth, man. Okay, and you eat in the evening, that means you're you prioritizing your affairs of your kingdom, okay, before you indulge for yourself. You're prioritizing the affairs of the kingdom before you indulge. Okay, so let's get that and we can end it with the book of let's get that Sirach 6 and 24. Because I said we end it there because he might have froze up again. Look like he froze up. Brother, if you could put it on with the brother, if you still on, if you can post that, bro, GMS, one of y'all brothers, Sirach 6 and 24. Baba Kashah. All right, but I get this. Wait. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 3. It says, this is another one from the brother GMS Good Soldier. It says, an unwise king destroyed his people. And this is Esau. He's an unwise king. He's unfit. That's why was given a temporary rulership. You know, that's why the Lord gave this man a temporary rulership, because he's unfit. He's an unwise king. All right, because he's programmed to be selfish. He's programmed to be wicked. He's programmed to be violent. He's programmed to be a niggard. Okay? That's why he was given a temporary kingdom. It says, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited, man. You know, life is going to flourish under the rulership of Israel, man. Even this rigorous captivity is going to benefit the heathen in the long run, because they're going to get their wickedness purged out of them, man. Esau going to be destroyed. He's going to be exterminated. He's not going to exist. He's not going to get to enjoy a righteous rulership. He's going to be exterminated, man. Okay? But the heathen, after 1,000 years, man, even that rigorous captivity, because it's going to purge that wickedness of Esau out of them, man. Okay? So let's go here. We'll end it here. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 6, verse 23. GMS Good Soldier again. It says, give ear, my son, receive my advice, and refuse not my counsel, man. And this captivity really made us receive the Lord's advice. You know, being in this lower state, it made us receive, you know, the Lord's being in this estate made us receive the Lord's advice, man. Okay? So now we've given ear to the Lord's advice, and now we understand what the Lord was always trying to show us from the beginning, man. As the sons of God, this is what he was always trying to show us, man. The seriousness of ruling in righteousness, man. It's not an option. Ruling in righteousness is not an option, man. This is what the Lord has showed us in this captivity. Okay? Ruling in righteousness is not an option. You see, it's the only way. Okay? And it benefits everyone from top to bottom. You see? And it says, verse Shalakin, bro, Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 24. But that was a good one, though. It said, I'm gonna read this one. It said, and put thy feet in her feathers and thy neck into her chain. You know, that's being a prisoner to this wisdom, to this doctrine, you know. But yeah, you can get that, bro, that Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 24. That was a good one too. Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 24. Because before we can become those rulers, we have to become a prisoner to this wisdom. You know, before we can become, all right, these polished, okay, well-rounded, righteous rulers, well, we have to become a prisoner to this wisdom and this discipline, this understanding. Okay, you got it, bro.
This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 24. It says, but the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is upholding of the people.
Yeah, so the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, is the benefit of the world. The earth is going to be, you know, because the earth is going to be in a constant state of flourishing, man. You know, the earth is going to go back to abundance. Okay, the earth itself is even going to grow, man. Okay, everything is going to be fruitful. The food's going to go back to having its nutrients. The earth is going to have its smell back, man. This nigga done knocked the smell out the earth, man. You know, this nigga done knocked the smell out the earth, man. The earth is going to go back to having its natural smell, man. Okay, no pollutions, no toxins. Okay, no factories, no chemicals, man. Okay, and that's going to be in the righteous rulership. You know, it's going to be a righteous feudal system, man, with the nation of Israel being the kings and lords of the earth. All right, the nobility of the earth, man. Okay, and these heathens, okay, they're going to be servants. Okay, so that was the point, bro. You had something?
Bro.
Okay, well, we'll end it on that, bro. You know, Lord will, you know, you brothers, all right, and you sisters identified once again. I'm going to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Makakwadash, And double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessing, salutation, hopefully, shalom.
Shalom.